Aloha, and welcome to The Big Picture, the podcast where we go behind the scenes to discover how Hawaii's film and TV industry really works. Today, I'm joined by Eric Hayes, a seasoned assistant director, producer, and unit production manager, known for work on his hit series like NCIS Hawaiʻi and major films like Captain Phillips. We'll break down exactly what these roles involve, share some behind-the-scenes stories, and hear Eric's insight on navigating the realities of production life. Let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Eric Hayes. Thank you for coming on our show, the
Thanks
Big
for
Picture podcast. You know, we created this platform. I'm going to introduce you real quick, Eric Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
I have here on my information sheet, although you work for CBS, your middle name is...
Fox.
Oh, yes, Eric Fox Hayes. I'm going to just, so the viewers know who you are, give your credentials real quick. I don't want to embarrass you, but you've been, all the way from a PA to assistant director, UPM, producer, director. I worked on a few episodes that you've directed. Many projects. The last project we worked on was NCIS for 3 solid years. Had a lot of potential to go longer than that.
Yes.
It was very sad when that went away. So having said that, you've been in Hawaii for about 4 years?
Yes.
Yeah. And how did you get started in this world of film?
Well, it's interesting because I was supposed to be playing baseball.
Really?
Yeah. And I actually went to St. Mary's College with Jim Jost.
Really?
Great camera operator here on the island.
Oh, my God.
And
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's okay. I've known him a while.
Did he always have that hair, or?
Oh, he's always been beautiful.
Probably it was a ponytail back then.
It was. And as a matter of fact, when we're finished, I'll show you some pictures. But so I ended up, there was a movie called Angels in the Outfield that was shooting in the Bay Area.
Love that movie.
Yes. So I was asked to join it as a production assistant and help choreograph the baseball stuff and organize like 300 baseball players.
Nice.
And one day I was, as a PA, in charge of passing out the checks and everything, and accidentally saw the first AD's paycheck, and I was like, he makes a pretty good living. I can wear shorts and a T-shirt the rest of my life and make films. I'm in. And so I started on that, and then I jumped on to a movie called Copycat, another one called Jade. But my kind of real break was on Tin Cup, and that's when I met the great Ron Shelton, wonderful, amazing writer-director. And that's when I met Kevin Costner. And have known those guys for over 30-plus years. And they took me under their wings and showed me a lot about the film business, and on both sides, in front of the camera and on the back side of the camera. And I got into the Directors Guild when I was 26. I was one of the younger people to ever get into the Directors Guild, and was an AD for 20-plus years, and got the break on NCIS New Orleans to direct a bunch of second units and become a production manager on it. And unfortunately, when that show went down, fortunately enough, I was asked to come out of here with Randy and Chris and Jan and Matt and start NCIS Hawaii, which we all, to this day, still think it should be shooting.
Wow.
And so that's how I kind of ended up in the film industry. Everyone has their own ways.
Yeah.
Some people go to film school.
Exactly.
Some people end up writing. Some people,
So you never did set out going, I want to be a director one day, or?
No, as a matter of fact, I started a TV station at St. Mary's, and so I went into sports reporting.
Oh, there we go.
And one evening, the shortstop on our baseball team took a bad hop, broke his nose, and they were like, Eric, come in and play shortstop. Literally the next batter, the next pitch. Hit a line drive up the middle. I reached down, came back, hit me in the mouth. I lost all these teeth here, severed this lip, and I was like, well, someone doesn't want me to play baseball or be on that side of the camera.
Yeah, exactly.
So I ended up becoming a production assistant and, made my way up.
For someone who doesn't really know, we have a lot of people who watch this who might not know the steps it takes to become a director. There's a couple of different ways, but the way you went, how does that work? You start off as a PA and you work so many days? Or?
Yeah, so I started off as a PA, and then I did a movie, I did a TV show, Nash Bridges, and basically as a production assistant in San Francisco, they were giving me second units, and I was rolling cars, and the DGA kind of found out about it and was like, he's not in the Directors Guild, so you're going to have to grandfather him in, or we're going to fine you $10,000 for every episode that I had been on. And Don Johnson looked over at me and said, "Welcome to DGA."
That's a dream right there.
Yeah.
Because if not, you usually, as a PA, have to do what, 400 days?
600 days.
600 days.
I think it even might be 700 days now with 100 days as working in the commercial world.
And then what does that do? That qualifies you to apply to be a second?
Yeah, second AD.
Yeah.
And what you do is you take your book and you put it in. You either send it to New York or LA.
Mm-hmm.
They take a look at it. They ended up, they'll throw out 25, 30 days because there's no pay stub or, something's wrong in the paperwork. And then they vote on you. And once you get in, you can't work in the three major hubs. So you can't really work in LA, Chicago, or New York.
Oh, okay.
So you've got to consider, again, this is 20-some years ago, but I think it's still in effect, that you've got to pick someplace outside that zone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you got to do, I believe, 250 days.
Oh, wow.
And then you become third area. And you can, at that point, after you get done with the third area, you can start working in L.A., Chicago, and New York.
I give it up for the PAs, man. I don't know how they do it. They go through a lot, and they're very committed to get to that point. So you can see it when they eventually do make it as a second AD, first AD. There's a lot of pride involved, but yeah, there's a lot of experience. You only can be in those positions if you have a full experience of how a set is ran, right?
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things that when I was growing up as a PA, I wanted to become an AD. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, the PAs are still kind of figuring out what they want to do, because you can jump into the camera, you can jump into post, or they come in and they start to find the groove and all that. When I was with me, it was like, we're going in the Directors Guild, and that's the route we're going.
Right.
Probably as a UPM, then hopefully producing, and everything else is gravy on top. But I think nowadays, when you become a set PA, you're kind of, feeling it out and where you fit and what works for you.
Yeah,
which is great.
That's a great place. I was going to say that's a great place to just learn about. If you don't know if you want to know about the industry, but you don't know anything about it, I think starting off as a PA is a great place. You can ask all the questions that you want directly to the people working there. What inspired you at a certain point to say, oh, this is what I want to do? I want to be a director or UPM, or was there anybody involved in that saying, hey, you'd be a great UPM one day?
It's funny because not really.
Not really.
It was more of I fit into the world of the film industry. We're all circus people.
Yes.
We're a little crooked.
Absolutely.
A little sideways. And I
That's
fit
my
right
people.
in.
That's
yes,
my people.
100%.
And right, you know it. As soon as you're in it, you go, this is my people right here.
Yeah, and you either have the it factor or you don't.
Yeah.
And so I once I got really involved in filmmaking and saw, we're taking a script and it's becoming someone's vision. Next thing you know, we're putting it on the screen and people are going to see it. And I kind of fell in love with that and the process of it. And once I got into the Directors Guild and I became a first AD, I first AD'd a $100 million movie when I was 28 years old.
Wow.
And so I was given a lot of trust when I was young. I think it comes from being the youngest of seven. So I had to grow up quick, and I had to be able to listen and treat people correctly. And I think that goes a long way in the film industry.
Yes.
And I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to be a producer or director. Personally, I've been a producer, I've been a director, I've been a PA. I have a great time doing every single one of them.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. It's like for me, I never had a tier of, oh, this is where I want to be.
Yes.
Or this is what I have to do. I just want to go out and make good projects with great people.
Yeah.
And laugh all day and make sure everybody goes home at the end of the night.
Yeah. And you know what? You're 100% correct about, you got to know how to respect people, treat people. And personally, that's what I've totally felt from you. You coming from Louisiana and being our UPM, pretty much our leader going into with the show. And from the get-go, I really saw you in a different light as to other UPMs. I love all my UPMs. But, that you guys...
It's okay, Chip.
You guys are dealing with the business side of things a lot. It's crunching numbers. It's making sure we're hitting our marks in the budget. It's making the tough decisions. What got to be cut? What can we afford? And as we all know, when it comes to managing budgets, everyone won't be happy all the time.
No, but it's also, again, I started as a PA, and I've seen all facets and all sides of what goes into making a TV show or a film. I understand what the grip department is. I understand why you're asking for a pre-call.
Yes.
We got a techno crane. They want it for the first shot. There's so many moving parts in our industry, and I feel very lucky and blessed that I know a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I'm still learning.
Yes.
You got to learn something new every day. But I also take it that a lot of UPMs, I used to call them Dr. No, but
Yes.
you don't have to be that UPM where it's no, or this isn't going to work, or that blah, blah, blah. I like to hear the question. I like to hear the ask, and then formulate with that person or with that department or with the other producers what's the best way to decide what we're going to do with, an extra $25,000. Here's a perfect example. Ron Shelton, wonderful, amazing director. And we were on a film called Dark Blue. And it was like, do you want a fireplace for the scene where you're in the hotel and there's, dancing and everything? Because we need a fire marshal and but it's going to cost $2,000 to have that fireplace. Or do you want an extra 20 people in your end of the movie scene where Kurt Russell gives his 10-minute speech? And we all sat there, and Ron's like, I want 20 more people over here.
Yeah.
So it's a communication thing. Not everything is no. You got to be able to listen. And people don't come to you just because they want to come to you. They're coming to you for a reason.
Absolutely.
And you got to respect them because the crew is hired. I consider myself 100% a crew person.
Yes.
We're all here to make the best product that we can and make a vision go up on screen and be very proud of it.
Yep.
So if you're coming to me, we've hired you or a DP or whatever to make the best product. So if they come to me, they're coming to me for a reason.
Yeah.
It's my job to listen. But we will talk about it, and we'll come up with a smart decision.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think that's a normal thing, at least in my short career. It feels like, and this is just from a grip standpoint, UPMs are a lot of times unapproachable. And again, you guys have a lot on your mind. You guys are running around doing things. I know, but seeing a UPM, usually they're not going to talk to your average grip most of the time. They have a lot on their mind. I always get the sense of you're always asking us how we doing, how's it looking, how's the Red Sox doing, but you have time for conversations. You love communicating. You always check the temperature of the crew. Whether it's making extra craft service runs, making sure the crew is taken care of. Building new things at Diamond Head Studio, that comes out of your, but the state is not building those things. Like, it's guys like you who want to invest in Hawaii's film industry, make things better so that our infrastructure can live on and we can keep going, creating good stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I'm the youngest of 7.
Yeah.
And their mom passed away. So my mom married their dad, and I was born into half brothers and sisters. And we care about each other. We love about it. But I also came up in the sports world, and it's a family, you know, and you got to help out each other. And there was a day when we were doing the flip on Larry's episode of the money truck or whatever it is, out in Makaha. And I'm out there passing out water because no one could drink enough water. They couldn't break away. And they're like, what are you doing? I was like, I love the crew.
Yeah.
I love the people.
Yeah.
I was also a first AD. I missed the camaraderie of the set.
Yeah.
You know, the poking of the fun and, you know, the doing whatever. I do miss that. And I think I'm probably around the set a lot more than other UPMs.
Yes.
I tend to do a lot of the paperwork on the set because I enjoy being there.
Yeah.
You know, if there's going to be a big stunt, I like having my eyes there. You know, but it's one of those things where I take pride in knowing as many people's names as I can. I'm not the best at it, and I'm not going to know 100%.
I'm the worst at it.
And it's hard to do.
Yeah. It's a lot of people every day. It's a lot of people. And I like what you said about, you know, you growing up kind of in a sports family or sports structure. And this is just me personally, and I am a sports guy. It's so relatable. I feel like a lot of people who played sports transition into filmmaking very easily because it's such a team sport where you're in the heat of it. One moment you might be, you know, yelling at each other or, you know, getting into it to work out a shot. And then after that, you're hugging. You're after a 16-hour day, you're saying what a great job everybody did, and you get over it. And then the next day, you go at it again. You know, and I really love that aspect of filmmaking is like an ultimate team sport.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think like at the beginning of every day, you got the safety meeting, and you got to laugh. You got to do something fun there.
Yeah.
You got to make the day. You know, and it's like you thank people, you know, for coming into work. Thankful, you know, again. We're thankful. I'm thankful to be on this island and coming out here to make a TV show. I feel very blessed. I feel very fortunate that we're here. It's an amazing place to actually film and the crews and all that. But it's one of those things where, like I said, you got 125 people on the set, and then you got another 75, 80 off production. So you've got 200 plus people that you're managing. But if you can't have a good time, and enjoy what you're doing, and hopefully we will never do 16-hour days again. But it comes, a lot of it is sports related. You got to be able to intertwine. You know, it's football. The offense, you know, comes over, congratulates the defense on the turnover, or, you know, whatever. But it's such a big group, and it's a method to the madness.
Yeah. And you know, I know you're grateful for being here in Hawaii. I've seen your gratitude firsthand, and I just want to share this story because it's a story that really hit home for me and really touched my heart and really kind of like, you know, for me personally brought you in closer. And that story is I run a nonprofit on the side called Humble Hearts, and you know, for years on Hawaii 5-0, we would try to kind of get our excess catering food passed on just around the community, whoever needs it. And it was very hard because it is corporate, you know, it's corporate channels, and there is liability involved in giving our catering food to whoever needs it, right? And I came to you because I found Aloha Harvest, who kind of managed that liability.
Amazing place.
And again, a grip like me to be able to just come up to you and say, hey, you know what, this would be a great thing that if we could give all our leftover food every day, that's a lot of leftover food, to people in the community. And you said, absolutely. And you took that request and you ran it up the chain of, you know, corporate, and you came back and he said, yep. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. And you went ahead and you built a refrigerator where our caterers could take our leftover food, put it in there. We set up pickups from Aloha Harvest. And that's making a direct impact on Hawaii. You know, that's really in action showing gratitude. You know, I appreciate that. And not to mention containers of clothes. Like I'm talking containers of clothes and goods from the NCIS family. You coordinating it all to go to the Lahaina fire victims, you know? And a lot of people don't see that, and I did want to say it here, and that's one of the big things. A lot of people talk about it, but you were about it, and you really gave back to the community. So thank you, man.
Well, I appreciate that, and it comes from, I honestly do. It's care about everybody on the crew, care about, and we started it at Second Harvest in New Orleans. The same thing.
Oh, nice.
Someone came to me and was like,
Really?
and it always drove me nuts. I always tell the caterer, I'd rather have you run out of food than have, another half of, the back of the food in the truck that you could feed another half of the crew.
Trays and trays.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah.
So when you came to me and talked to me, it was like same thing in New Orleans. We had Second Harvest. And so I went to CBS, and it was kind of nice because I had already established it with CBS. And we did the same thing. We put all the food into a cooler, put the lock on it. Everybody had that lock, and they would come and take a food that you could probably feed another 70 people.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
And then because I saw it getting wasted, and they just take it and they put it in the dumpster.
It's hard.
And it's just like, you don't know how many people
Yeah.
that you could feed with that. And when you came to me, I was like, thank you.
Yeah, and the big thing about that too, which like was a huge, it could set precedents, right? Like we could set up the system that every production can use from here on out, and no real corporate people can say, oh, we can't do that anymore, because it's like, no, we've done it before, and this is how we've done it. So I really do appreciate that. And so
I want to touch one thing
Come
on
on.
the thing for Lahaina. So we've been coming out here for a long time, my family and myself.
prior to
NCIS.
NCIS.
Yes, and between Maui and Oahu. And one of the first pictures that is framed in our house is a picture of my daughters. And I don't think we have it up on the walls anymore. And it was with an 80-year-old beautiful Hawaiian grandmother that made, that's where they got their first puka shell necklace.
Right.
Okay? And they had their ice cream, and she was playing with them, and they stuck the ice cream on the nose, and so her nose is all white from the vanilla ice cream. And it's the picture that was so genuine about her love for the children and her love for her town. And she lived above the ice cream place. And I don't know if she was still alive when Lahaina hit and all that stuff, but when it happened, I just had to, I had too many people. Auntie Blanche I was called by one of our guys in Victor's group and said, hey, we know that you have access to containers. And I was like, whatever I can do. And so I started out doing some stuff, and CBS and the crew and everybody jumped in, and we would go to Costco, and we'd go over there, after the store closed, and Randy and other people, and we would all walk around, and it was like $7,000 here, $10,000 there, and CBS was so supportive. And I think we ended up taking some 20 plus containers, and John Reed was,
Oh my God.
and Mike Anderson. We got a couple of containers to his park.
That's amazing.
And it was something very special for me. But again, tragedy unites.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing because so many people jumped in. And we were out at Kapolei, and we were just container after container after container. And people didn't care where they were going. So we eventually got, but it was just, I just wanted to touch on it because it was very, very personal to me what happened over there. And, thank you to everybody in this community. Thank you to everybody that's given back to it. I hope Lahaina becomes what it was before. And I think they're moving in the right direction. And Raising Lahaina is a documentary that some local guys that have done over there. Hopefully everyone's going to start hearing about it. I'm helping them produce it. It's done. Now we're going to try and get it released. It'll make you cry. And it's footage from inside the fires to dealing with the water and how it was all redirected, 35, 40 years ago. And they didn't have the water there. So it hit L.A., with the whole thing with the fires and no water. But their documentary, and Phil and the group of guys that put this together, I can't wait for them to be able to show it and our goal is to, be able to take it and show it here on Oahu and over in Maui, because it's incredible.
You got to share that with us. We definitely all want to check that out. And that kind of segues into you still producing things here locally. So after NCIS, you wanted to stay for a little while, or
Yeah.
or was there other projects on the horizon that you kind of was like, hey?
No, I didn't have anything. So the last day that we were out on the west side, I literally had nothing else driving home, and I got a call about Headhunters. And it was that Kevin Costner movie, surf movie that takes place, and then they end up on the island. And so that became...
I heard about that.
Yeah, so that became my pet project. And unfortunately, I'm not going to get into the politics of the island yet with the taxes and things like that. We'll talk about that later. So I was planning on staying another year no matter what,
right?
Because I have a daughter that was going to be a senior at Mid-Pac, and we didn't want to take her out of Mid-Pac and move back to New Orleans. There's a couple of reasons behind it. One, I love it here. My family loves it here.
Right on.
And two, making films here with this world-class crew, class cast. And there's something to be said about 82-degree weather year-round for the most part.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
So, am I staying? It's interesting because I just got that question asked about an hour ago, because I started putting things on Facebook Marketplace to sell.
I saw that.
And so some people called me and they're like, "You're leaving?" And I was like, "So, no, I am staying. My family is actually going to move back to New Orleans in June. My daughter, who will be a sophomore next year, will continue her schooling there. My older daughter, who's graduating Mid-Pac, has gotten into Boston College.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Great city.
Great school. Yeah. Red Sox. Oh, gosh. But so my wife and I decided that it's better for her to be in New Orleans because she's closer to Maddie. And so I am actually staying out here, and I've got a couple of projects that are brewing, some things that I've pitched, and I'm going to stay out here and hopefully help rebuild the film industry. It's only a flight to go home every 3 weeks. And, they'll come out for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and all that kind of stuff. But I thoroughly 100% love it here.
Yeah.
And I'm staying here for the long haul.
And that's why I really wanted to have you on. Is like you give that unique perspective of someone trying to produce shows here. What are the challenges of bringing a show here? Because, we are always fighting, as workers to, get the best wage, get the best work conditions, have the proper training funded. But the reality of the situation is, if there's no jobs here, if there's no work here, if no one's bringing in these shows, all that is for nothing, kind of. You know what I mean? So it's great to have a perspective from, maybe someone who has gone through this before, elsewhere, what the challenges were there, because you come from Louisiana and they've had their issues of
100%
going through kind of what we're going through right now, right?
Yeah. So, we had to go pitch to Steve Scalise, he used to be a House Majority Whip, and, Governor Jindal. They're doing it down there with Governor Landry right now. They are in an actually pretty good situation, and Jason Wagenspat and Todd Lewis and Frank Monteleone and the whole film industry down there marched, several years ago. But they have a unique way down there because the legislators and politicians, they actually communicate and they talk and they get, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen here. It is happening here. And again, once we get past that topic, but it's hard because the film industry is fickle, and the money chases the credit.
Yeah. So you're saying the industry nationwide is fickle?
It's 100%. Yes. And it's not just, you can't say Hawaii is in the situation it is right now because of their tax credits and other things. It's nationwide.
Right.
There's 4 or 5 productions shooting in Atlanta. 3 in New Mexico.
And usually Atlanta has how many going at one time?
10 to 15, if not more.
Yeah.
And Louisiana's got one little low budget show that just wrapped.
Dang.
And so basically everybody needs to be up in arms about its runaway production. Okay. And not to blame writers or actors. They decided to strike, and we all stood beside them. And we're very happy that it went down that way. I don't think anyone could have predicted that when the strike for SAG, when they didn't come back and everything started to go overseas and studios and producers see, okay, 40% tax credit. I can take a movie, $10 million to Australia. Can I really make it for $5 million, and I'm getting tax rebates back on top of that. And it's not just a Hawaii problem right now. It's a national problem. Yeah. And let's see what Trump does. He's put tariffs on everything else. Hopefully he's talked about it, about if a show gets shot overseas, they put tariffs on it for it to come back. Yep. And I think that would drive productions back to the United States.
Yeah, we definitely need some federal backing here kind of moving forward in the international competitiveness of the industry.
100%.
So in Louisiana, like, what do you feel like, did you overcome that situation for the tax credit at that point? And kind of what did you see as kind of the key things that got you guys through that?
Well, we were always pretty lucky in regards to the tax credit. We were at 181 million, and it was a rollover. There was a cap of 25 million per show, per project. But if a project's getting 25 million, it's going to be there for over in a year. So they were taking money from 24, or I'm just the year before.
Yes.
And then the year that they wrapped. So they were getting the benefits of both. And then Jindal came in and he cut it to, I forgot the number, 150 or something like that. When we were in our prime and we had 15, 16 shows shooting there, one, it was hard to get permits, but two, it was we never hit 85 million in even giving out tax credits. So when everybody here, this is a perspective, when everyone here says, oh, our cap needs to be above 50, not necessarily. If it gets to 60, this is, again, my personal opinion.
Absolutely.
If it gets to 60 and it stays as a rollover, we only used 24 million last year in the cap. So in theory, there's another 25 million rolling over to next year. So in theory, your cap is 75 million. Where you get a little bit sticky situation is with like Chief of War. They're going to cap out at the 17 million per production. So they're going to cap out no matter what. NCIS Hawaii capped out. I'm sure the Heyday with 5.0 and the others, they all capped out. I think if you take that cap and you move it to 25, you're going to see some other bigger shows. But it's one of those things in Louisiana. Everyone goes, oh, they dropped. And when Jindal dropped the tax, that's when everyone flew over to Georgia. Really? Because they didn't have a cap. They were, there wasn't a production cap. It was technically $25 or 25% tax credit, but you got an extra 5% if you put the film logo, the Georgia Peach, on your poster or on your webpage. And then they give another uptick of 5% if you shoot in certain parts of town, and then another 5% if you used 80% or more of the crew.
So it's like closer to 40 for most of them.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that's why they were so good, and that's why they benefited, so quickly. And our governor is very supportive here. John's very supportive of the film industry.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But the governor literally in Georgia stood up when Jindal dropped it, and it was like, bring all shows. Bring them here. And the next thing you know, for 5 straight years, they were 500 million plus that they were putting into the economy.
Dang. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I will say, I don't think the island could hold.
No.
Again,
I
think if we have two movies and 2 TV shows going here,
me too.
Everybody's employed. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. That's not a lot of greed because we're on an island. Yeah. There's only so many places you can shoot.
Exactly.
And a buddy of mine's shooting over in the Gold Coast in Australia. They 2.5 weeks ago, they couldn't shoot on a Friday because there was no permits left and there was nowhere to shoot.
That'll be the day.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
We had that for 1 year in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Where literally it was like by noon you had to be out of this parking lot, and by 2 p.m. you had to be off the street because another show was coming in.
So was it you personally with like a group of people? Was it the unions? Were you guys meeting up with the legislators? What were you guys kind of doing exactly that kind of got you through the process of getting what you guys needed to continue on?
So there's a group called Film Louisiana. Jason Wagenspat, who runs a studio down there called The Ranch.
This is independent from your film commission.
This is 100% independent. Okay. It's it's a nonprofit. They raise money, and they're not the voice of Louisiana. But if you were to, I mean, you're on Facebook and social media. If you go on mine, you would. He's out there every other day saying this is what we got coming up or this is what we're doing. But I think 6 or 7 people in that group, and they talk once a month, and they are not the official voice of Louisiana, but they're the voice that people will listen to.
Right.
And they are the ones that have the direct line, to the governor or to the senator. And I literally texted him today. I mean, I'll read it to you later. What he told me, I said, "Are you have any concern about the Louisiana tax credit?" And he's like, "Absolutely not. This is who we met with last week." So they are a year-round process of meeting with people, which I think it would benefit immensely here on the islands, because then you're not just working up to where your back's up against the wall.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you've got a rally, and not a protest rally,
right.
A rally to say, we're out of work, we need the film industry to come back. We started that way, and we had a rally 6 years ago, and then we had one 2 years ago. It works, but there's constant communication throughout the year. So then we get to the point of bills and things like that, there's no big surprises.
Yeah, and I say that a lot. It's like no one particular group can be blamed for the situation that we're in today. And again, it's just for the simple lack of participation on guys like me, just members of unions who've been living great this whole time, and now we're in a crisis, and guys like me want to figure out everything right away and how we can where's the solutions at, and what I'm hearing is like this thing is a year-round thing. We need to work together as an industry, right? And but going back to your point of that group that kind of came together, they're probably industry experts, and
they're all in the industry. 3 of them run studios there. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
3 of them run studios there, and there's like 2 or 3 producers, and a casting person. So it's a group of people.
And is there like any kind of locations person in that group that kind of says like, hey, if you want to come shoot here, these are the best places, these are the most functional. So you guys are just staying within your state, shopping around for shows that are being made, or are you guys going out to LA? You guys going out to New York and maybe trying to find clients to come to Louisiana?
So it's a nonprofit, and they've raised quite a bit of money. And I want to say October of last year, something like that, a group of them, they flew out because they've got the nonprofit. Their tickets were paid for, their hotels were paid for, and they went to LA for, I believe, 5 days and met with almost every single studio head, producers and all that. And then they threw a pretty big rooftop party with a band and food and made everybody come to it. And there was probably 125, 130 people up on this rooftop, and they hired a drone, and they went out there and pitched the state of Louisiana of what we have here. This is what you'll get if you come. And it was like mind-blowing, and people, they've got definitely some things brewing. It was right when everything was starting to go overseas, but it's a unique thing, because they went to the studios and said, this is what we bring. And if the state of Hawaii, had it, Vallejo will go to L.A., Georgia will go to L.A. and go to some of those
our film commissioner office here.
Yeah. But
I was going to ask, so there are people doing that for the state of Hawaii, like aggressively going out there and saying, hey, come to Hawaii. We have all these resources. We can do it.
In my personal opinion, they're shorthanded. So I can't say that the word aggressively is the right word. They're going through and doing what the means they have to work with. But if the state of Hawaii wants to be aggressive and not lose out to New Zealand for chief of war, which is $140, $130, $20 million it's a big project. And it's about what? The state of Hawaii.
Absolutely.
And it's shooting New Zealand. And you just need to be able to sell Hawaii. We went 13 years without having to sell Hawaii. We had CBS, you had movies coming in, you had Jurassic Park, you had everyone was coming here. No one knew about New Zealand at that point.
No.
Okay? I mean, Kualoa Ranch, let's be honest, they make a lot of money off the tourism that shows what movies have shot there.
I really want to see just that number. Like if we could call Doug or somebody down there at Kualoa and say, hey, can you just give us the number on just the film tour you do and what are those numbers? Because that got to be a huge impact.
It is, but it's one of those things that we've got to reinvent the wheel here, and we have to reinvent the fact that we have to sell Hawaii now. We no longer have the luxury of, the state of Louisiana, just like here, lost CBS. They were down there for 12 years. And then, bam, they packed up, they headed out, and it was like, where'd they go?
Right.
Why are they not here?
Yeah.
And the same thing happened here. And I think it kind of caught us all off guard because we had the gravy train for so long.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the carpet goes from underneath you. And you're like, okay, they're gone. Who's coming next? And it was crickets.
That was heartbreaking. And I did want to mention that. I was thinking, I think the biggest heartbreaking thing about NCIS coming to an end was we never really got to say goodbye. Like we ended up getting, cut after our season wrapped.
Yeah.
And I actually just came back from New Zealand and we got the news, and it was shocking, but we didn't really get to say goodbye. On Hawaii Five-0, we like mid-season, we're like, we're gonna finish this season. This is gonna be the last one. So everybody kind of said their goodbyes. That was a 10-year run too, and you want to talk about family and those bonds. That's a huge one. And we were just gaining that momentum on NCIS. And we had a lot of people really gaining momentum on the experienced guys being able to step up in certain positions, whether it's in the camera department, grip department, electric department. All these guys, local guys, are progressing through shows like these, and that's really the only opportunity you really get to progress like that. Movies, they're here for, a month or two. They come with a set gang. You do that project and you're done. So it's really these long-term shows I feel like we really need to kind of help build that infrastructure.
And it's also training the young from the old. It's like we didn't go outside the box to hire anybody. That was great about here with the camera department. I mean, we had a second AC operating. It was like, okay, sure, put her on the camera. It was great. You got to fill in for less on Tech Scouts. We had electricians, bringing people up and within. Same thing in the art department. Jamie Koo had never been an art director before, and she did an amazing job. And so you promote within, and everybody is feeling like, okay, I'm not just going to be stuck in my same job for the next 10 years. I'm going to be at some point promoted, or they're going to do things. And we had something special. And I totally agree that we didn't have the proper ending. And, you can sit there and point fingers, how it went down and why it went down. And to this day, people say, oh, it's a financial thing and the show was too expensive. I'm not going to sit here and get into what show expensive it was, but I've never heard of a top 10 show, ratings-wise, ever being shut down.
Yeah, there was a lot of things going on in the industry. It wasn't Paramount selling or something at that point.
Well, in the middle of their merger.
So I don't know. Everybody's always looking for answers for those type of things. But yeah, the critical thing where we're at right now is all that progression, all that experience just dying, right? And this bill that we're, currently like in the heat of right now, right? It's SB
literally today.
732.
Yeah.
In your opinion, What about this bill you like? What don't you like about it? What result would you want to see if any?
Okay, my first disclaimer I'm going to say is I'm not an attorney and I can't read those bills worth anything.
I have Chat GPT that's
okay.
really been helping me out.
Okay, because then you can teach me. I just look at what I think needs to be in a bill
Yeah.
and what is important to the infrastructure and bringing the film industry back. And I also think I bring a different perspective, having come from the mainland and coming over here and thoroughly loving it over here and want to see the industry, succeed. And people, let's be honest, we want to make movies.
Yes.
But more importantly, we want to put people back to work.
Yeah.
We want to see people not have to give up their trade and not have to give up their houses or not have to take kids out of certain schools and put them in other schools. We want a sustainable film industry here that everyone can prosper from and everyone can take a Thursday afternoon off when, little Sammy's in the play or there's the track meet to go to or the, whatever. That's what we want here. And it can be done. And personally, in the bills, I have said from the beginning that there's got to be 3 in front of the tax credit for us to be 100% being able to go up against Georgia, Louisiana, and all. And I brought that up earlier.
We need a 30%. We're at 22 right now?
22 right now.
This bill is calling for how much of a raise?
Well,
5%?
there was in the bill 5% uptick for keeping the crew at 80% or more locally. It went away. I heard it came back in today.
Oh.
But again, it's hard to tell, and I can't. I don't want to use the word "what's the truth."
Yeah.
But
yeah.
things change so quickly inside the Capitol building. They go from one room to the other to the other. It's like Sundance,
Yeah.
You get an offer over here in this house, and then over here in that house, it's a different offer, and then it's changing.
Yeah.
Me personally, the priority is a better tax credit.
Okay.
A number.
Okay.
So if we really do get a 5% uplift,
Yeah.
and we get to 27%, there's not a 3 in front of it, but it's better than 22%. At least you can now make a case for people in LA or other parts of the mainland to come here instead of going to New Zealand. It's a 5.5-hour flight versus a 12-hour flight.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to hear from a lot of actors that they don't want to travel that far. They don't want to work on the other side of the hemisphere.
Yeah.
Where it's a different day.
Yeah.
But so 5.5 hours here,
Yeah, we're still in the game.
we're still in the
basically.
game at 27%.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't understand too is these productions, they're actually increasing their budget 15-20% just to make it Hawaii, right? Would you say that?
Not that much.
Not that much?
No.
But you know what I'm saying, right? It's already an expensive place to shoot. So that's why it's important that this tax credit,
100%.
every little percent helps because we're already fighting the logistics battle, basically.
Right. And the reason, one of the reasons, I'm not going to say the only reason, but the main reason Headhunters went away is out of the blue, they came up with this 4.71 tax against gross payroll. It was put into play in 2014. Okay, and
it was set into law in 2014.
Yes.
Okay,
But
and so you guys been paying that?
No. That's the problem. No one ever enforced it.
Oh,
and then there was litigation with entertainment partners, and then all of a sudden, not even Doe Tax. I found out about it from entertainment partners putting out a press release with cast and crew saying, "Oh, by the way, you're going to see a 4.71, tax increase against loan outs and against all payroll."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, we never had that at NCIS Hawaii. So my little movie, we had to come up with $1 million up front just to pay that 4.71 against payroll. Okay, there's other people on the island say, well, you just build it into your budget and whatever. Well, when we were building our budget, we didn't know about it. So we asked for an exemption because I had already hired Jess Cole and Alex and other people, Shelton, to do schedules. And so we were already paying people.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked for an exemption from that 4.71 because they didn't make it official here from DOTAX until, I want to say, the 11th of October. Okay? And that's when the official word came out. September 14th or 10th or something is when EP put it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and said, well, hey, I've used the grandfather clause term.
Right.
I started my production, and they go, well, it's always been a law. And I got in a little bit of a discussion with DOTAX about, well, it's never been enforced.
Right.
It was never enforced on NCIS.
Did they go back and enforce it all those years?
No, but they did against the crew here on the island. And you can ask crew members out of the blue 2 years ago.
For their rentals?
Yep.
For their personal rentals. Local people with personal rentals.
Correct.
Had to go back and pay back taxes.
Correct.
Wow.
So you should, I'm not going to give names, I'll tell you off camera who you should talk about that, because that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go after the studios,
Mm-hmm.
where it's hundreds of $1 million that they left on the table.
Right.
They went after the local crew.
Dang.
And it's completely wrong. And then I was told, no, you're not. You're going to get your extension. And that's when everything started to roll the wrong direction with
And
the
you
movie.
even had, like, Kevin Costner is what I heard. He really wanted to bring this project here so bad he was willing to put his own money in.
Now, it was
Oh, okay.
never, there was, everybody says, and things like that. It was more about we had the money. And well, no, I'm going to backtrack. We had the 4.71 issue, so we had to come up $1 million up front. Okay? But the other problem with the state here is the tax credit, once you get done shooting,
Yeah.
it's not being paid in a timely fashion.
Mm.
Okay? Louisiana's 12 months to 18 months, somewhere in there. Most places are the exact same way. It could even be 6 months.
Okay.
NCIS, CBS did within supposedly the last month, when the governor got involved, got their first check from season one. That's
From season one?
one.
Jeez.
So when I went to go to get financing for the movie,
Yeah.
they're like, well, we'll give you it for 18 months. But how are you going to pay for it after the 18 months and when you don't get the $4 million tax credit?
Right.
How are you going to be paying us back? Or who's going to be paying that 2.5% finance fee?
So in the financing world, there's a distrust of the reimbursement issues because of some state process.
Well, you
for the process of getting that refund.
yeah, for that initial that film, we were saying we'll have the money back within 18 months. So you build that into your budget or your production.
Mm-hmm.
But when all of a sudden the bank's hearing, well, we made a couple of phone calls
Yeah.
and CBS haven't seen anything for a while, or this company hasn't seen it, or this company hasn't seen it for a long time. They go, well, we still want to loan you the money, but who's going to pay for it after the 18 months of what you financed
Right.
or what you budgeted? And let's say you don't get it back for 36 months or 40 months. So that was the real downfall of Headhunters.
That's sad, and that's a movie we really could.
We'd be wrapping today.
I know. Yeah. Are there any other projects that you've seen kind of come and go, or maybe pass us up within this past 6 months to a year?
Yeah, I would say the 911 spinoff.
Mm-hmm.
They really wanted to come here,
Mm-hmm.
and there's people on the island that have difference of opinion than me, but that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But they left because of the tax credit,
Mm-hmm.
and the cap, and that's the bottom line. We can say that they left for creative reasons.
Yeah.
Sure, creatively they can come up with the money.
Yeah.
So it's, but that's not to blame anyone, and we're not sitting there pointing fingers. This is, again, the sports analogy. This is the playing field.
Yeah.
Just keep it honest.
Yep.
and let us play on the same playing field and don't move the goalpost. And but it's hard to, when they can go to the 9/1 spinoff, and they ended up in Nashville, and Tennessee's got a great,
Oh, really?
a really good tax credit. But do you want to be in Hawaii or do you want to be in Nashville?
Right. Well, the bottom line is, do people want to see a show in Hawaii
Yes.
or anywhere else? So
When was the last time there wasn't something shooting here where there was not a show about Hawaii on television?
was at some point when I was growing up and my dad was on food stamps.
Yeah.
I think it was like after Waterworld, there was a huge drought for like, years. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. But, me personally, I've been working almost 20 years and I've been super blessed since it's been Lost and then Hawaii 5-0, NCIS, Magnum, so I have been one of the fortunate ones that haven't seen these days. Kind of like watching the Patriots dynasty.
Okay.
But now it's a
Touché.
now it's a rebuild.
Are they actually in Massachusetts? Okay. Yes, but I 100%. I hear.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't the rip session of this.
No.
This is a
Well, no.
This is a national problem.
Yes.
But the fact that there's nothing in Hawaii shooting right now.
Yeah.
People here, if you're on the mainland, oh, so and so Bill Smith is shooting over in Charleston or up in Wilmington or whatever. So you slide over into that state, or you slide off the state here, you're in the middle of the water.
Yeah.
You're not going to be called to go work at something on the mainland when you've got best boys picking up the phone and calling people, that are in Savannah and saying, Atlanta, hey,
Yeah.
send 3 guys up.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't do that here because they can get in the car. So that's why you need a sustainable film industry here where you literally are going from show to show.
And the only reason why I asked your perspective, I think a lot of people don't know how many shows are kind of coming through and passing us up, right? We only really kind of hear about shows that are in the works, but there are a lot of shows that kind of come in, have interest, and for whatever reason, continue on their way. Is there a level of people they're encountering personally? Is there anything that feels unwelcoming besides our tax credit? Is there anything about our structure is unwelcoming that we can improve on?
Yeah, I think, I go back to Louisiana, but right now we don't have a film commissioner in Louisiana. The mayor fired her 5 months ago, Carol. So you need a point person. You need a point 3 people that when a producer can call up and say, what falls under the tax credit? Do the airplane tickets coming in fall under the tax credit? Like in Australia, all flights going in fall under the tax credit. All flights going out don't.
That makes sense.
Right. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
But you need to appoint people here. And Valea and Donnie and George, they can only do so much.
Okay.
You need some support.
Right.
And you need to hire the right people in that spot to support them. But you need to be able to tell them how much is left in the kitty in the tax, in the credit. Or have a PowerPoint presentation of all the locations on the island. You need a list of 10 hotels and what rates you can get at those hotels. You need the one sheet from Enterprise saying what all the cars are going to cost. You need to have a realtor that you can go to, and when you bring it in, we don't want to bring in a lot of people, but let's be honest, there's going to be some above the lines that are going to come in, or even some below the lines. But you want to be able to have a realtor say, go look in this place for a furnished house, or you want an unfurnished apartment.
Sure.
That helps and goes a long way. But there isn't that person, that organization yet.
Yes.
And there will be. There's talk about it. There's things like that. But you got to have somebody that can answer the phones.
Right.
And if someone calls up and they leave a message, call them back. And you need to be calling the studios every month.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you got? What's going on? Oh, so-and-so. They talked about a possible, show coming here. If they cast it, and keep not the pressure, but hey, we're still here.
Yeah.
And again, it's a national issue though
Yeah.
right now. It's not just a Hawaii state issue.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help. We're the most expensive place to shoot in the continental United States, or in the United States. It's 22% tax credit, which is really, let's be honest, 17 because the cost of living over here
Yes, yeah.
and food and all that kind of stuff. So there's things that go against people coming here,
Mm-hmm.
but you know why they come here? Because it's Hawaii.
Yep.
And it's a special place. And we don't want New Zealand to become that special place.
Right.
Like for me, the biggest thing that's ever happened, and I go back to sports, in modern Olympics. Let's see if you know this answer. What's the greatest thing that ever happened?
Duke Hanamoku won the gold medal in swimming.
That's a great thing. Do you believe in miracles?
I personally,
No. The hockey team
Gotcha.
beating the Russians.
right.
You know where they shot that movie?
Where?
Canada.
Wow.
And it tears me apart as an American that I can tell you where I was standing, where I was sitting, where I was crying as a 10-year-old. And the passion that we need to see on the island. And this goes back to Chief of War.
Yeah.
It's the history.
Yeah.
You're telling the story.
I think people feel the exact same way about that situation, about Chief of War being shot anywhere else besides here.
You know, they flew people from the islands to New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you shot it here, you wouldn't have to do that.
Exactly.
But I also understand what they're up against and everything else. You know, you got shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going to be like, well, hold on. You just gave away $20 million because you wanted to go shoot in Hawaii.
Right.
Well, that's a creative thing. That's what, the producers can fight. But you got to give us a chance to keep that show here, and not just that show, all shows here, if you're competitive with your tax credit.
So, we talked about we need to kind of build better point people, a team of better point people or something like that.
I do want to say Georgia and Donnie and Sandy and, Valea, they do the best they can with what they've got.
But basically we're stronger together, reinforcing that, giving them better resources so that we can do that. And you laid it out, and that all makes complete sense. Why nobody is doing that already is kind of like, scratching my head. But is that what you believe they're trying to build into this new bill of kind of creating another film commission, a state film commission?
It's a film authority, I think is what it's being called.
That replaces the current film commission?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Because I'm confused on that as well, and that's another bill alongside 732 that, it's almost tagged along with it because there's that investment fund in 732 as well, right? Did that go away? The film investment fund?
No, it's still there, I believe.
So
and again, I don't want to answer because it changed by the hour.
Right.
You go into one office and they talk. No, we want to add that back in.
Yeah.
They go over. Okay, we're going to pull that out. So it's changing to the minute. I can't tell you what's in the bill.
Right.
As of right now, I can only tell you what I've heard in regards to that. It's some type of film authority. Could be 9 people. It could be 11. Please don't make it an even number.
We'll never get anything voted on.
Exactly. That they have talked about going from 50 million to 60 million. That I heard may be being pushed off to the side. The 4.71 tax we're being considered a manufacturer now, so it goes back to a much less tax. And then
I think the
streaming it has to do with the streaming and all that stuff. But I'm going to say, again, coming from a studio, and I'm not going to say a mainland, coming from any studio, Japan, Los Angeles, wherever you're coming in from, that means nothing to me. I want to know that I'm taking $10 million to Hawaii and I'm getting $12 million out of it.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
when it comes to bringing productions here.
Yeah.
That's what producers are looking for.
Well,
and they generally don't want to. And I also think there needs to be a little bit of, without saying it rudely or whatever, there needs to be a dialogue about what is above the line, what is below the line. Okay, above the line is director, writer, producer, cast. Okay. Below the line is DP, stunt coordinator, costume designer, all that kind of stuff. And I heard rumblings several weeks ago.
Are the DPs crawling up into above the line?
No, but yeah, well, then I heard, someone literally said, well, no, they're part of the above the line. I was like, no, they're not.
Right.
No, they're not. They're part of the crew. Right. It's the below the line.
So we should get that language straight when it comes to incentives.
If you're going to argue it.
Yes, absolutely. I think the biggest scary thing that, I don't know, we didn't mention is within that bill, now there has popped up a sunset date on the tax incentives completely, meaning that if this bill gets passed with the little things that will make us competitive, it will pass, but it will also pass this sunset date, meaning we're moving to zero incentives.
Well, I think it drops down 10% for every
year for like 6 years.
30.
Yeah, or something like that.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say. We've had that in Louisiana at least 4 times. Sun never set.
Right.
So, and again, back to the football analogy. I don't know who's going to be in the Super Bowl in 2030.
Yeah.
I need to worry about who's going to be there in 2026.
Right. So you personally think if we can get this passed with these little bit of improvements, and yes, there's that sunset date on there, we're still in kind of a better position.
Yeah, I mean, who, besides canceling a top 10 TV show, what legislator or politician is going to kill an industry if all of a sudden we get 2 movies and 2 TV shows when we got $400 million of revenue that's going into state?
And maybe somebody says we want to build a studio.
Or we want to build a studio. Or you get Dan Lin and Netflix to come in and take over Diamond Head.
Right.
And you start going in the right direction. Who in their right mind's going to go and turn the light off in 2030 and make it all go poof, it's gone? We don't even know that the legislators and the politicians that are in there right now
are going to be there.
When we get to 2027, it could be all film friendly.
Yes.
But, and again, I'm not going to say film friendly. Politicians are in and legislators are in a very hard spot.
Yeah.
We as film makers and film community, we're going to go out and advocate for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And same thing with tourism, same thing with military, same thing with Dole and Pineapple, and everybody else is going to go, we need a piece of the pie.
Yes.
There's only so many pieces that you can pass out. And, with federal funding disappearing in some of the things, then it's even more stressful.
Yeah.
But, education, they need a bigger piece of the pie.
Yeah.
So we have to recognize that we're juggling 1 ball. They're juggling 20, and they're doing the best they can. And again, there's 1.4 million people in all 7 islands,
At the same time, if we're looking at a way to diversify our economy, what are some of the leading industries in the state? We got to be up there, right?
We're third.
We're third?
You can take... people can manipulate numbers according to, Disney. Forrest Gump's never made any money. So you can, but it's definitely military. It's definitely tourism.
Yeah.
We're third. There's got to be import, export, and the port somewhere in there.
Yeah.
The pineapple world and with Dole used to be huge. It's fallen off now.
What I'm saying is it's an industry worth
a thriving industry.
Investing in.
100%.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah, but do we need the whole pie? No.
No.
We just need a little wedge of the pie in terms of the tax incentive. And the other thing is the credit. The credit isn't a money maker. Okay? That's not here as a fiscal money maker. You're here to bring in the people that will take that credit. And so you're getting, let's say, you're getting 52 cents back on every credit or every dollar of the tax credit.
Right.
That's actually not bad Because if you bring in an industry that's going to spend $250 million,
Yeah.
or $350 million,
Or 700
or
million.
$700 million,
Yeah.
then that credit is doing its job.
Right. Unfortunately, that seems like all they're looking at.
Well, it's the return on investment, but they also get pressured. What is your return on your investment? And I read an article today that where you were out of pocket like $67 million last year, or 2023, in the overall scheme of things. $67 million goes a long way.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to take a cheap shot right here. Don't build the rail system.
I don't know. I think we can all agree on that. I haven't seen anybody riding it.
242 people a day.
Every day on our drive out to Moana while we're shooting, we're looking at the rail going, oh, yep, nobody's in there again.
Yeah.
So I hear you. Well, thank you. I could sit and talk with you. You give incredible insight, again, from a different perspective, and we need to hear everyone's perspective in this to come up with some solutions, some resources, but also just sharing your story on coming here to the island, giving back, showing your gratitude through actions, and really caring about our film industry and our film culture here. I appreciate you coming, take the time to sit down and speak to me.
Thank you for having me. And I'm just going to leave it with one thing is we all need to get in the same boat and on the same mission for the same goal. We can't be splintered. We can't be fractured. And if we only are at 22%, then we live with it. But we all need to get productions to come back here. We can build 10 studios. We can have 150 people in ICANN. We can have everything else, which is all good. But if we don't have productions and we don't have anything shooting here, last I checked is 0 part of 0 is 0. So let's all work together on a positive note. Let's all get in the same boat. Let's all row at the same time and bring the film industry back here as a family, as a group, and watch it thrive again.
I 100% agree with you, man, and I'm with you on that. And we just keep continuing to come to the table, have a conversation with each other, and work through it.
100%.
But thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. I appreciate you, everyone. Eric Hayes. I'll see you around.
Yeah, see you around.
All right, buddy.